Welcome to the National Women's Fitness Academy podcast. We're here to talk about women's health, female hormones, body image, and all things health and fitness.
Hello, girls, and welcome back to another episode of the Women's Fitness Academy's podcast. I'm your host, Siggy, one of the WFA's educators and a women's mindset coach. If you haven't done already, please make sure that you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss another episode. And we would love and appreciate you so much to drop us a review and let us know what have you been loving so much in the recent episodes. With that being said, today I'm chatting with the lovely Stef Goddard, who has started her coaching business so she could help many people as possible and improve their mental and physical health through nutrition, training, and empowerment, all while living with ADHD. Stef is learning how to apply exercise and nutrition for her mental health and supporting others to do the same. Stef, thank you so much for joining me. I want to start today's conversation with how do you support others who are living with ADHD while supporting yourself as well?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. So it is a challenge having it myself as well. However, I find that with lived experience, I'm better able to serve others and not just come from a place of, yeah, I know, but no, I actually do know. So let me go through that a little bit. So because of the way that I work, I know that when I have clients that come to me with ADHD, and I've got a couple of them, and mostly are women that have either been diagnosed or undiagnosed but have these traits. We look at things like, okay, what are they currently doing and what isn't working and what do we need to do to get to the place where it is currently working? And they come to me for fitness and training and nutrition and mental clarity. And what we do is we sit down and we talk about what they're doing. And then we go, okay, so what we're going to do is add some structure in, because ADHD people work on structure and we thrive on structure. We can get thrown out a little bit when that structure and routine goes off, but it's being there for them in person and online and however I need to be, and going through this structure and routine with them. So I will set their training schedules, I will set their programs, and we will talk consistently throughout the week, and we will adjust things as we go along. But the biggest part here is they expect someone to go, hey, you haven't done this, or what's wrong? What's going on? You're not doing this. But I go, hey, is this one a little bit too much for you today? Or how can we adjust this to suit you better? Because I know that the time frames around scheduling can be really, really difficult to manage. So we make it as simple and simplistic and easy as possible. And to them, that becomes then manageable and attainable. And that's what we do. When it comes to nutrition, we know that omega-3 fatty acids in the Mediterranean style diet, through research, and there's numerous studies on this that we can go and look at, helps with the ADHD brain, because omega-3s create new neurons in the brain. And this is why we have that as growing up, and they're like, eat your fish and eat your vegetables. And this is because those vitamins and minerals create new neurons in the brain. And I am so adamant about getting my clients to go, hey, we're going to add things in instead of take things out. So where can we actually add more vegetables? Where can we actually add more omega-3 fatty acids? And we go through everything like that.
It's so refreshing to hear the way you support your clients. And I'm not here to diagnose or self-diagnose myself, but maybe this is why I love fish so much.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think that, after you've eaten a healthy meal, and when I say healthy, I'm doing air quotes, and I don't know if anyone can see that, but, a well-balanced meal. We're talking about a lean protein of choice. And if you're vegan, then we know that there are other options here as well. And we're talking about those vitamins and minerals, and reminding people that every different type of vegetable and fruit is a different vitamin and mineral. It's a different color. It does something different in the brain. But when we add more in, something really amazing happens, and we become energized, and we become clearer, and we become, our mood improves, because the brain is now flooded with all these vitamins and minerals. And what it does is it creates endorphins. And this is what exercise does. And this is the biggest thing that I talk to about my clients, is that endorphins regulate mood. They elevate dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin in the brain, which in the ADHD brain, we are not only in short supply of already, but we struggle to retain it. So we've got to keep doing things to create those endorphins in the brain, but exercise does that. 20 minutes alone will create enough endorphins in the brain for about 2 hours of clarity. And there's research on that we can go and have a look at. But then when it comes to female health, there's another side to it. And when we come into our periods, when we come into our cycle, the 10 days prior, when we know that we go into the luteal phase around then, so estrogen is linked to norepinephrine, dopamine, serotonin. When our estrogen drops, we become so much harder, like we drop so much harder than a neurotypical brain, because their estrogen drops and they're moody and they're awful and it's bad. But when ours drops, like it's something different. It's because we're already low. They drop here, we drop here. And I need to make sure that my clients are aware that this is going to happen. So we track everything and we go, okay, so it's coming up to luteal. We know that we need to increase omega-3s, increase the zinc, increase iron, increase vegetables, increase recovery and rest. You do not need to go balls to the wall in that week prior. If you feel you can, cool, but if you don't, take the weights down, go for a walk, do some yoga, do a class that is stretching and mobility, and do not berate yourself and be hard on yourself for having to take it down a notch for a moment. Come back. You'll get those amazing gains when you come back into your follicular phase. And we go again. And this is the difference between training women and men. But women with ADHD or men with ADHD, this is just, it's a different ball game, and it needs to be taught and supported in a different way.
It's so fascinating to hear the fact of how in depth you go around the women's cycle. And of course, women don't work as men with a complete different types of genes. And you also mentioned a really interesting point about the fact where, you know, women with ADHD do suffer quite predominant or are struggling more than other women during that luteal phase. What are some symptoms or things that come up for women with ADHD around that time of the month?
Yeah, definitely. So most women will get the period blues, where we feel quite depressed and sad. We might feel a little bit hopeless at times, or we can't get out of bed and it's just too hard and too much. And when an ADHD person gets the period blues, it is harder. It really is harder, because what elevates mood is dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin. And because we already are in very short supply all the time, ours will drop to quite extreme levels if we're not looking after ourselves. And, you know, there's medication routes, there's nutrition and medication routes, there's cognitive behavioral therapy, and, you know, finding the right option for you is going to take a psychiatrist, psychologist, and professional work. But it depends on the person. And I know for myself, if I'm not eating right, if I'm not moving, I'm taking significant benefits away from myself for when my cycle starts. So I know that in order for it to become not so detrimental when my luteal phase starts, I need to keep up these beneficial factors in my daily routine and daily life. And that's checking in, that's movement, that's walking out in nature, that's treating myself well nutritionally, that's hydrating, that's being around calm and good people. And when my luteal phase starts, I know that, okay, it is going to be a little tough, but it's not going to be as bad as if I was to have let all that go. So it's putting those things in place and making sure that I'm going to be okay, and making sure that my clients have these structured into their training program. How are you eating? How are you sleeping? How are you hydrating? Let's check in again. We know that this is coming up. We know that you don't need to go balls to the wall today. This week may not be PB week for you, but next week will. Yeah.
I love that. It's so refreshing to hear the ways that we can go about taking care of ourselves, not just physically, but the mental side of things. And as you mentioned, those who suffer with ADHD, it's a different realm. It's a different way of looking at life and being okay with the fact that there's going to be moments where you're going to have to pull back instead of just continuously pushing, because we know the constant push is just going to lead to burnout.
Absolutely. And ADHD burnout is another level. It really is. And we get very angry at ourselves for not being able to do it all at once. And that's what we want to do. We want to do everything and we want to do it now. And we have to be self-aware. And the best thing that I ever did for me was to research into adult ADHD. And I've been diagnosed since I was a child, but as I've grown, it's developed in different ways. And some people don't get diagnosed until their 30s, and I'm 34, and they're coming to me now going, oh my goodness, like this is, like, if I had have known this ages ago. I said, I know, but there are so many things that you can do now, and that we just have to put things in place, and you just need to be supported and encouraged and reminded. And that's what we do there.
Yeah, God, I reckon women in general are quite hard on themselves. Like every woman that I've spoken to, whether they suffer with ADHD or not, there's this perception of having to do it all. And yeah, I guess like that's another conversation for another time. But I would love for our audience to have a better understanding of your journey, like what got you into coaching and sharing your journey with your own personal experience with ADHD, weight loss, depression.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was, let's say back in 2015, I was 110 kilos, 112 kilos at my heaviest. And I'd not long had my baby. And I had a lot of depression. I had postnatal depression. He was born a couple of years before that. So he is not, like, my pregnancy is not the result of my weight gain. My pregnancy is not that. So he came along, and I was already depressed in the beginning because I was so overweight for me and my frame, and for my view on myself, and for the way that I wanted to be. And I was constantly depressed. I was eating, I was drinking a lot. I would self-sabotage all the time. I would say I'd try, and then I remember buying diet pills at one point and checking and seeing if that would work. And I've done a juice cleanse, I've done everything you can think of. And then, it got to a point where I was so depressed that I was having very negative thoughts that just doesn't need to be there. And it's funny because a week later, on the street that I'd bought my house back then, a gym had started opening up. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a good sign. All right, I'll give this a go. And it was like, either join the gym and try or completely give up. And so I decided, you know what, let's just go. And I did hours upon hours of cardio. I remember doing 20 minutes on the treadmill, 20 minutes on the elliptical, 20 minutes on the bike, and then just going and then eating whatever I want for the rest of the day. And I would do that on a repeat cycle, and nothing was ever happening. And I was getting more depressed. And then all of a sudden I had a free PT session on my birthday. The gym does that, that they do those little things for you. And I had a PT session, and I could not move the next day. I tell you what, I could not move at all because my body was so unconditioned. But I absolutely loved it. I loved the challenge of looking at what my body can do and what it can't do yet. And I started to keep going. And all of a sudden I noticed changes in my body, and the only benefiting factor that I could think of was that I had switched from endless amounts of cardio to weightlifting and body weight and movement and walking more, because I started to get happier. And when I felt that, I thought to myself, you know what, I am going to start a Cert 3 in fitness. just so I can learn more. Because I tell you what, the ADHD brain, when we go into hyperfixation, we will not stop. And this is how I credit my ADHD superpower of hyperfixation, which it can have an opposite effect. But I like to think of it as a positive, that I've been able to create I've had these certificates, these diplomas, because I'm studying what I love. I'm studying what sets my soul on fire. So I'm like, my body is changing. I'm getting happier. I'm not so sad all the time. It's still there, but we're getting there. And I started studying my Cert 3 just for me. I did not think of anyone else. I just wanted to learn more so I could be better. And I did that. And I'm like, okay, so what now? And I'm like, well, I'll just do Cert 4. I'll do Cert 4. And I did Cert 4, and I started, studying under the PT that first did my PT session with me. And I did all of that. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm getting stronger. I'm getting fitter. By then I had lost about 55 kilos. And I've done it all naturally, all through food. I didn't learn too much nutrition in the Cert 4, but I did do my own research a lot and asked a lot of people around me and a lot of other, high industry people for some support and some guidance. And that allowed me to create this massive love and drive and passion for changing people's lives. But it started from a mental point of view. And once I got the mental side down, my mental health right, my clarity, everything else followed. Everything else followed, because you've got to start from the inside. You've got to start getting your habits right, your learning right, your mindset right. And that is the hardest part. It is the hardest part, to get your mindset right into going, okay, I have to change, because if I don't, I'm not going to be the person that I know I can be. And once you do step into that, once you do start acting like that person, everything else follows. And I'm fit, I'm strong, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm educated, and most importantly, I can now turn all of that around and help everyone else that needs it. And that gives me purpose. That goes, that I think back to Stef 6 years ago, depressed, crying in the gym mirror, in the bathroom, going, I'm never going to be like those girls. It's never going to happen. And I think, the amount of people that I've helped so far, she would be so proud of me. She's proud, because I turned it all around. And every time I help someone, or every time a client goes to me, Stef, even an ex-client that still messages me and going, I hate you for these Bulgarian split squats, but my God, my legs look amazing. And I'm like, it may be a small impact, but it's huge to me. It's huge. And that's my passion now. So it's through lived experience that I'm able to help other people and go, if a larger person comes to me, or an unhappy person comes to me and tells me their story, I can really look them in the eye and go, you know what? I see you, because I do. And this is how we're going to change it.
Well, you're making a difference for sure. And it's so refreshing to hear the fact. And you know what? Like, thank you as well for your honesty and your vulnerability, because I'm sure that time was a really tough situation for you. Making the decision of whether staying the same or actually making the change. And we both know that making a change is a really difficult decision for a lot of people, for ourselves. I'm speaking from my experience. I'm sure you can relate to this as well, where you're set in a challenge and part of you is like, no, just stay the same. Like that fixed mindset kicks in, going, this is your life. This is how it's going to be, where deeply rootedly inside of you going, no, there's another fucking way of doing this.
Oh, there is. There is plenty of ways, and it's finding the right one that suits you. There really is. And as I said, getting out of that fixed mindset, it truly is the hardest thing to do, because we are so stubborn. We are so stubborn that we're like, nah. But when you find someone, when you find a coach, and, finding a coach I think is like finding a psychologist. You have to find the right one that fits. And not everyone's going to fit you. And you're not always going to like what your coach has to say. But that's why you have one. We're not here to sugarcoat things, literally at all. We're here to help. And you have to find the one that fits you. And I'm really quite passionate in making sure that my clients understand that this is not easy, but it is so fucking worth it.
When it comes to your coaching, and from our earlier conversation, you have a lot of valuable knowledge around ADHD, its connection with nutrition and training. I would love for you to shed some light for our audience and perhaps provide some tips for those who might be in a similar situation. Like what are some myths that we can debunk right now around the ADHD realm and people who are wanting to get into their fitness and nutrition?
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with the tips. Some great tips would be find a coach that can give you a program that is specifically tailored to you. Please do not go and get a generic Google images program that is not suitable for your body. You may have injuries, you may have mobility issues, you may not have that type of equipment. Please find a coach that can do that for you. Find a coach that has an app that you can see visually, because when we have something to follow, when we have something to tick off, ADHD brain and most women and men will love things that they can tick off and get done. That it's a source of dopamine. We're like, yep, done that job, it's great. Especially when they have a little noise attached to it, like ding, that's cool. We love that. Find a program, a coach that has an app that can tailor that to you, that you can actually see visually your progress and how you go in that program at the gym. And then you press save at the end of it and you know that you've done it. That is an accomplishment just in itself. Make sure that when you do have that coach that you are in constant contact. In the past, I've had clients that are too afraid or think that they're being too much by talking to me and going, hey, and I'm like, oh my goodness, please tell me if something. So now I'm really adamant with my clients. I might be annoyingly thorough, but I'm like, so hey guys, how you going? How, it's been a couple of days, just checking in again. How did you go on this workout? How did you go here? How did that one feel? Make sure you are honest and open with your coach. Do not leave anything out. We want to hear from you. In most cases, coaches aren't hearing from their clients enough to be able to coach. And we want to hear more. So if there's something that we need to adjust to keep you motivated, to keep you adjusted, to keep you safe, to keep you happy, that's what we need to know. So be in constant contact. Have an app program where you can see visually and tick it off. The next one would be research into your ADHD, research into ADHD benefits. Do not fixate on the negatives, because there are negatives. Fixate on the positives, because I can tell you what, I never thought I would be where I am now. I was terrible at school. I only went to year 10, and now I'm an entrepreneur, business owner. I have 3 diplomas, 4 certificates. I'm a mum. Do not fixate on the negatives of ADHD, because there are so many things that we have superpowers for. So lean into them. When it comes to nutrition, keep it simple, please. Please keep it simple. Do not overcomplicate it. When I'm creating recipes for my clients, or my Instagram page, or my group private page for the business, if I can see a recipe that has 10,000 things to it, I get overwhelmed. It's too hard. It's too much. I'm too time poor. So keep things simple. Whatever happened to the basic sandwich? I say bring back the sandwich. Bring back the sandwich is my hashtag. You've got whole grains on your bread. If you need gluten-free, go for it. Use a wrap. You've got salads and vegetables for your vitamins and minerals. That's 2 ticked already. A lean protein of choice, whatever it may be. That's number 3. Have some cheese. My goodness, cheese is life. Have some cheese. And number 5, have a sauce or a relish or something that you love to make it palatable and enjoyable. And keep it simple. Make a few ahead of time. Meal prep is king, but keep it simple. Do not overcomplicate it.
The overcomplication of nutrition is so common, and it's common around meal prep as well. And this is a conversation that I've had with so many of my clients, where when they head into their preparation, they're like, I feel it's as if it's just taking so long. I'm wanting to try all these new recipes, so and so. And just like yourself, I just tell them to pull it back, go back to the basics, and think of what's going to benefit you throughout the week. And if you have to split your meal prep throughout the week as well, then do so, because I find people put too much pressure on themselves to do the meal prep just on a Sunday. It's just like, who made that rule up? Like, why are we following? Yeah, I always tell them that. The only rule that you can set is the rules that you set for your life. You take on board everything from, us, a coach, a friend, and so forth. But the best way to manage it is fitting it into your lifestyle, like how it's going to work. And I'm sure with ADHD, you can fixate on that, going, oh, well, if it's meal prep on Sunday, I have to do X, Y, and Z to get it done. And if I don't get it done, then I'm a fucking failure. And if I don't get it done, it's just like I'm, not serious enough about my goals. And like obviously I have these thoughts, dictating to our success.
It's a massive snowball effect. It really is. Yes, absolutely. Just, I think at the end of the day, coaching has been skewed so many ways, and only now, probably in the last 2 years, is it starting to shift in a positive way, I'm finding. And people are like, I have to do everything that my mate next door is doing and it's going to work. Well, I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but no, it's not going to work, because your mate next door's 3 inches taller than you and weighs more than you and needs different things than you. And he works 3 days a week and you work 5 days a week. You have to stop. People have to stop fixating on what everyone else is doing and bring it back to what is going to work for me. And if I need to do a meal prep on Sunday, if I need to do it Sunday, just do it for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then on Wednesday, change your meal prep to something much simpler that's going to take you 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And then you've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday done. Like it's just it's people overcomplicating it to fit in with what's in instead of what's going to work. Mind blown.
Yeah. And again, it also comes down to like human psychology. We're always wanting to do the next best thing because that person's doing it and following a trend. It's like fashion, we're seeking to be part of something else. But as you mentioned, it's like, how can you support yourself on a level that's going to nourish you, whether it's through nutrition, whether it's through training, whether it's through mental health, whatever it is.
What is going to get you to your goals more efficiently and with less stress? What is it? Let's unpack that together, and that's what I will say. What is causing stress? Is it meal prep? Is it timing? Are your gym sessions too long? Shall we cut it down a bit, and do we need to adjust them? Do we need to add in some different elements to it? Are you getting a little bit over it? Are you having some digestive issues? Let's unpack your nutrition.
Breaking it down.
Just break it down. So when we want to debunk some myths, you were talking about that earlier. So I thought I would start with, I wanted to do 3 of them, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
I'll start with carbs.
My favorite
thing in the whole world, carbohydrates. And I never thought I'd be saying that. but it when I learned about carbohydrates, I thought I saw the Matrix. That's how it felt when I finally understood and learned about carbohydrates and how they affect our brain and our body and performance. I saw the Matrix and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this needs to come out more. And that was way back when I learned, all my sports nutrition degrees and stuff like that. So carbohydrates are a main source of fuel in the body. If especially for an ADHD brain, and this is what this particular podcast is about, so I'm going to keep referring back to it. But for specifically an ADHD brain, carbohydrates produce glucose in the brain, which fuels our body. If we are too low on carbohydrates, we will get extremely fatigued. And I can say this from when I once did a competition prep a few years ago, and I couldn't finish it. And there were numerous other factors around that, but I had gotten about halfway and I realized the low carbs that I was having was affecting my brain and my mental health so badly that I was back having negative thoughts again. And I talked to my doctor and I did everything I needed to do. And they're like, Steph, you've got ADHD. Your brain needs carbohydrates to fuel and regulate. And that was the word he used, massively regulate. I'm like, okay, I understand. So I pulled out and I got all my nutrition back on track. I became healthier. I became well. I became happier again. And all my clients will know that, when we're in a dieting phase, if you are, successful in talking to me about a dieting phase, I don't just put people in dieting phases. We go through a series of things to go, are you actually ready? And mentally, physically, emotionally, work life, family life, are you in the right position to do a dieting phase? Because it can get a bit narky. And they know that when their carbs drop, how they feel. And I've had clients say to me on refeed days, or when we go back out of dieting and into maintenance, where we should live most of the time, oh, Steph, like, I feel so much better. I'm so energetic. I'm sleeping better. I'm happier. I'm not moody anymore. My husband's not getting mad at me because I'm an asshole anymore. Like, carbohydrates not only will improve your performance, fuel your body and brain, grow muscle alongside protein and amino acids, but it will improve your mood and it will fuel everything that your brain needs to actually function. And you've got to remember that the ADHD brain functions differently and we need more. We simply need more. So that's number one. Number two would be, I've had a few people tell me around, does the keto diet work? Does the keto diet work? I'm like, okay, let's unpack this one a little bit and briefly. Every diet will work if you are burning more calories than you are ingesting. It's as simple as that. That is the scientific, simplistic fact. If you are in a calorie deficit, any diet will work. However, there are a lot of nuances to that, but that's another time. The keto diet works in the beginning because we are taking carbohydrates out of the body. So number one, we're taking a whole food group out of the body. And number two, for every gram of carbohydrates that the body ingests, we hold up to 3 to 4 grams of intracellular water anyway. So when carbohydrates go, so does the water molecules with it. And that is the weight versus fat that we lose. And this is why I don't generally like the term weight loss. I would prefer to say fat loss, because anyone can lose weight. It's the body fat that most people come to me with. So keto will work for a short amount of time, and then it will get harder and harder and harder because there will be barely any water molecules left because you've taken all the carbohydrates out of the body. And then you will be extremely fatigued. And then your performance will suffer, and then your mood will suffer, and everything goes along with it. And that's not to say it doesn't work for, a minority, but for majority of people and for an ADHD brain, I wouldn't recommend it. And the third one would be fasting. Fasting is a topic that I like to talk about because it's just uneducation. It's the lack of education around it. I would never berate someone going, oh, I did this, I did that. I'd be like, okay, tell me why. Tell me your thoughts around why you think this is going to work for you. And if I will never give advice because I've been shut down before, I'm like, would you like to tell me more? Would you like me to tell you more about it? And fasting is simply just changing the window of where you eat. It's as simple as that. So if your caloric intake is going to be, for example, 1950 for the day, and you simply are moving your 1950 from, say, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., you're moving it to 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., and it's still 1950, you're still in your maintenance. So please don't be fooled that shutting out windows of food is going to make you lose body fat. You still need to be in a caloric deficit. And I would argue that with ADHD brains, we actually need to be constantly fueled to keep going through the day. Not eating would put my blood sugar levels in horrific ways, and I would suffer in my mood, my performance, my recovery. I would not be a nice person. So we need to constantly be eating, and that is the biggest tip that I can give an ADHD person. If your goal is to lose some body fat, start dropping your volume of your food. If you don't track calories, if you don't follow a meal plan, the best thing you can do is eat what you're eating now and drop the amount that you're eating in those meals, just a little bit. You will actually still lose some body fat. But what I would like you to actually think about is, instead of taking out everything that you think is bad, I want you to add in more. Where can I add in more nutrients? Where can I add in more high protein Greek yogurt and whole grains and lean protein sources and boiled eggs if you're not allergic, and vitamins and minerals and fruit and veggies? Start adding in more nutrients, and the rest of the things will actually drop off anyway. That's what I would say.
There's so much simplicity to those myths. However, yet we still come across a lot of people who have been educated differently around that. And as you mentioned, instead of giving the advice, it's actually listening to the person, having an understanding of why they're choosing these certain ways of eating and living, and then shedding some light, going, hey, actually, maybe it's possible that you should be going down a different realm if this is your goal to lose weight or gain muscle, whatever the goal is. They're having more of a different perspective around it, because, you know, very similar to yourself, we got brought up that carbs are the devil, fasting will help you lose weight, keto will get you there faster. It's just like there's so many aspects to that. It's just like there's no just one way.
No.
And as you mentioned, if you stick to something long enough, yes, it will work, but we don't know what the detrimentals of that to your health, especially to someone who has ADHD.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
It's so true. Steph, thank you so much for joining me today. This conversation has been very valuable, and I know it's going to shed a lot of light for those who have been intrigued to learn a little bit more about ADHD around nutrition and training. And even for those who are feeling a little bit lost, going, oh, maybe I need to start looking further into this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been an honor. And if I can just say one more thing, is that anyone, whether ADHD or not, the best advice I can give anyone is to find something that is sustainable and long-term. Please try and not keep going to the next quick fix, because there's always going to be another one. And I would rather see someone learn lifelong habits and go, and, you know, and an ex-client of mine goes, I'm still eating the way that we spoke about 3 years down the track, and I am so much happier. That right there is the key to success. It's something that you can do for the rest of your life that works, that doesn't take away the joy of living at the same time. But yeah, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you. And girls, if you enjoyed today's podcast, please make sure that you screenshot it, tag us at the Women's Fitness Academy. And then till next time, make sure that you're taking care of your physical, but your mental health as well.
Thanks, guys.